All right, guys, well, welcome back to my house, and what will hopefully be the last video on the EP800. Remember, I did promise that I would do a video about the things I didn't like about it, and this is that video. Hopefully it'll be a quick one because there's not a lot I don't like about it. For those that haven't been following along, the EP800 is this top unit right here. This is a solar generator. It has two MPPT charge controllers and an inverter built into it to handle up to about 8,000 watts of power. It'll actually output 240 volts. I have four B500 modules. Each one is rated about 5,000 watt hours, so just a little under 20,000 watt hours in storage capacity here. So first things first, I literally just flew in from Dallas, and yes, my arms are tired, but that's not what I want you guys to know. I'll deal with the elephant in the room right now. Yes, my solar wiring is quite atrocious, but I do want to address another thing first, which is why I brought up flying in from Dallas. The plane that I was on, flying back to Phoenix last night, got stuck in a holding pattern because the weather in Phoenix was so extreme that planes couldn't land and they couldn't take off. So we had to turn around and go back to Dallas because there was nowhere to land in Phoenix, because also Tucson was having a couple of tornadoes at the same time, so we couldn't land there. So to say we experienced some pretty high winds here while I was out of town would be an understatement. In my comment sections, there's a lot of people saying that my solar panels were going to blow away and they'd be useless in an emergency. This 2,000 watt solar array that I built really on the cheap has already survived 3 monsoon storms that are pretty big windstorms, and not including the one last night that was a microburst, and tornadoes. It hasn't had any issues. It hasn't fallen apart. It hasn't blown away. So to all the naysayers in my comment section, yeah, it's fine. A solar pergola is a very viable option for solar generation on the cheap. But also, it's proven itself to be perfect for emergency preparedness. For a nearly endless and uninterruptible power supply in any situation, where you don't have to worry about storing a generator that burns fuel or even storing fuel or having fuel access. So this is a very viable option. And I really hope people do start taking this option to heart, as it's becoming more and more common for extreme weather to be knocking out power to parts of the country and other parts of the world. So with that out of the way, I have my top 5 list of things that I don't like about the Bluetti EP800. And I have a list right here. And I'm listing them from, I guess, least annoying to most annoying for me. So number 5 is going to be, without a doubt, the app. The Bluetti app is very clunky, it's slow. All right, so if I go to the app here, see, I'm sitting right next to it. Go to the app right here with Bluetti, and then I select my EP800, and then I hit this nut there at the top corner. Right here in the middle where it says working mode, you don't want to change modes using the working mode. You want to scroll down to advanced settings, because on working mode all you have are your 3 options, which is confusing. But if you go to advanced settings, they have working mode right there, where now you have all 4 options that you didn't have before. And also, if I wanted to switch to custom and back out of the screen, right, and then go back, you see I didn't switch to self-consumption. I'd have to go to advanced again, go to working mode, self-consumption, and now I want to go to custom. You have to wait for it, the whole thing to load. It's got a big lag and delay. Now it's switched over to custom. So now if I go back to there, you should be able to see it start charging from the grid. Like, I've been turning the inverter on and off and on and off doing all this, and there's no effect to the lights whatsoever. In fact, the EP800, I'm not even hearing anything changing within it. So it's all very silent operation. It's a very clunky app that hasn't been streamlined. They have been at least updating it and improving it about every few months. In fact, right now I'm due for an update. But I also had an experience where the EP800 actually stopped working completely until I did update the I don't know if it's firmware or the software on the unit itself. It just stopped working. It didn't give me a heads up or anything. And of course, to do the firmware update, you have to have your device with the app right next to it using Bluetooth. You can't do it over the internet. So the app's a little bit clunky. I don't think it makes intuitive sense. The good news is almost every app out there that's available is clunky and very difficult to use. A lot of times even still I'll have to back out or even turn my phone back off and back on again to get the app to work. But that's been true with a lot of apps that I have. I don't think it's just my phone, because lots of my friends have the same problem. That's usually the first advice, is to uninstall the app and reinstall it, or turn your phone back off and back on again. So Clunky app is just, I think, the way the world works now. But I wish it was a little bit more streamlined and simple. Maybe they had a simple screen and then a more advanced screen. That's my complaint. All right, so my second complaint is the MPP charge controller voltages. Now there's two MPP charge controllers on it. There's a 3,000 watt and a 6,000 watt for a total of 9,000 watts capability, which is great and fantastic. Now the minimum voltage needed is 150 volts DC in order to turn the charge controller on. And it can go up to, let's see my notes, 500 volts. Bluetti was basically recommending at least 250 to get it going, and that's been my experience. Even though I have voltages on my solar array that's 200-ish, it still does not kick on that solar charge controller for until I get probably about 260 volts. That's a very high voltage. I have 10 panels, and it's barely kicking it on until I have direct sunlight on it. Now, in my situation, I'm limited on speed. I wish the voltage input was a little bit lower, at least on one of them, so you had a little bit more versatility. I like having the two of them, and how they explained it, it makes sense to me, being able to have one that might be in shade in the morning and one that might be shade in the afternoon. So you can have two different arrays that don't fight each other because one's in shade at one time, one's in shade the other time. I just think the voltages are a little bit too high for my needs. Not as versatile as I would hope that it would be. I would wish that it would at least kick on about 100 volts rather than the 150 that it says, because 150, it is not kicking on at 150. The MPP charge voltage was complaint number 4 that I had for this. Now the third complaint is going to be periodically, for no reason whatsoever, my lighting at night, you can start seeing it pulsate. I can't ever get it on camera because the camera doesn't pick it up, only the human eye does. And it's not something that happens all the time. It's usually just out of the corner of your eye. You can kind of see it if maybe the vanity lights are on in the bathroom, but it's dark everywhere else. You can see just a little bit of pulsing. It's been something of an annoyance, but I haven't seen any detrimental effect from it. I've had no problems with any of my appliances that are running power. It just seems to be, for whatever reason, periodically it starts to pulsate a little bit. So complaint number 2 is the 110 wiring, or the 240 wiring that you wire up to the EP800. I have the manual out right here that shows it. We're using ring terminals, and I don't think that was a good choice to use ring terminals. Now, I didn't show it too much when we wired the whole thing in, but this is where the 110 or the 240 wires go in and out. These whips are actually really difficult to put on with this cover right here. I'll see if I can explain a little bit better. I'll take the side cover off first. I haven't had this off in a long time. Let's see, it's pretty difficult to take that off. I can try to throw caution to the wind by opening this up. All right, so I do have it loose. Pull this back a little bit so we can kind of look inside of all the slack that I had to put in there just to get those ring terminals in. And there's a lot of tension on this whole thing. That made this all very difficult to install this part, and the whip conduit for it too. I'm not sure why they didn't go with a simple terminal block like a circuit breaker would have. That'd be very easy to make a quick disconnect on it, rather than a ring terminal, because now you have a crimp connection and then a screw down connection. So that's 2 connections where 1 connection could be. And obviously when you're dealing with electricity and electrical connections, 1 is always better than 2 or multiple connections. So I really think they could rework this whole 110 wiring setup. Now, of course, I know there's a video about complaints, but the Bluetti EP800 is operating right now. That's how loud it is. That's how loud it's ever gotten. It's not loud at all. But still, it's not too bad, because you only hook this up once, and you don't ever hook it up again. I complained about Victron's connections too, so maybe I'm just the problem, and I just like to complain about things. With that, the number 1 thing about the Bluetti EP800 that really bothers me and annoys me is the wiring on the other side to the solar panels. And it's the reason why I can't use my side door on my garage and why I haven't finished the solar wiring to the EP800 as it is. The Bluetti uses standard MC4 connections to connect the photovoltaic wire to the inverter. So we have PV1 and PV2, and I don't know if you can see how marred up this connection is and this one down here is. With this end cap on right here, I could not get any tools to undo the connections. There's little tabs, let's see, right here. On the MC4 connections right here, and this is a male connection, has a female end inside of it. And once those tabs locked into place, I could not get any tool in here because this cover was on to take it off. Now maybe I could take the cover off, it would help a little bit, because I did try that and it still didn't help. I had to mangle the whole thing up. You guys saw it. I used needle nose and some cutters so I can at least unplug them from here. But I don't like the MC4 connection on the side of it. I don't know why they decided to go that route, but it's very difficult to disconnect. You can connect it just fine. It's the disconnecting, which is why this is still wired up the way it is. Which I know doesn't make a lot of sense, but that takes me to my honorable mention of the thing that I hate the most about my Bluetti EP800 solar grid setup system that I installed, and that's my fault. Because I didn't know if my solar pergola was going to work or not when I built it, and I didn't want to invest in a lot of expensive solar panels to find out that it wasn't going to work. So I proudly bought a whole pallet of $18 solar panels. They're used, they're at 80% of their life, and they don't really quite put out 200 watts. So I have 10 panels on my array, not quite 200 watts, so not quite 2,000 watts. So I'm very disappointed that I fell victim to the most classic of all blunders when it comes to solar PV. I didn't get enough solar panels. As I made my solar pergola just big enough to fit these panels on it, I'm limited to these dimensions. So that's my last upgrade. Once summertime ends and I can be outside in the sun without dying, I will be upgrading these panels to much more efficient ones, at least 300, maybe up to 400 watts if I can find them. And that will really increase the power output that I can get out of my array. And then I can do what I originally planned on doing by having 2 arrays, 1 row here and 1 row there. That way, if this one's ever in shade, this one's not in shade. If this one's ever in shade, this one's not in shade. Which was my original plan, but because the MPPT charge controller really needed at least 260 volts, I had to wire them all together and lose a lot of efficiency because of it. I did set this up to have the 2 solar arrays going, but because I haven't done that yet, it's just been using the temporary setup that I have. Once I upgrade my solar panels again, then I'll be utilizing the 2 MPPT charge controllers. I'll wire this thing permanently, or at least permanently, where I can open up the door again. But that won't happen until this fall, until it's a little bit cooler and I can find some time to do it. Until then, I've been very pleased with the performance of the EP800. If we take a look at the app again, if I go ahead and switch on it, well, gotta go back again because it's a little bit buggy. If we scroll down here, we can see that just this 2,000 watt solar array, I've made 1.3 megawatt hours in just a couple months. I think if we go to energy statistics, we can see month. Let's do year. So just from March to the beginning of July, I've already made over 1 megawatt hour, or 1.3 megawatt hours. And my self-sufficiency rate, basically that small little array has offset my home use 33% down there. Yes, I still have my on-grid solar connection right there. That does do another 50% of my use. My power bill has gone down pretty substantially, and I do get to keep my bedroom a lot cooler running off free power that the Bluetti is making for me. And I'm just hoping that when I upgrade that solar pergola, we get that from 33% to about 50, maybe even 60%, or if we really increase the wattage that solar pergola can put out. The last thing I'll leave you with this, when I was at CES 2024, one of the biggest buzzwords it seemed like was going to be these solar generators and these home powered backup systems. From what I've seen online myself, this seems to be about one of the nicer ones when it comes to the real installation of it. Like I said, it just stacks on the ground and builds its way up. There's no weight being supported by the wall of your house whatsoever, which means it's very portable and you can maneuver it very easily if you wanted to take it with you. And even though there are some out there that are a little bit flatter and they do seem to nest together, these are bracketed to the wall, so they're not going to tip over, even though the feet right here do nest together. So far, I've been very impressed. So far, I've been most impressed with the Bluetti EP800 when it comes to actual installation of it, compared to all the other ones I've seen on the market. I've had zero problems with the actual performance of it, other than a software upgrade that did knock it out for 2 days. And it did irritate me because I was out of town. But otherwise, it's been working flawlessly for me. That was my quick video about the 5 things I didn't like about the EP800 from Bluetti. Number 5, the app is clunky and slow and lags. The MPPT charge controllers needs a very high voltage in order to actually switch on. Number 3, random pulsing in my lighting for no real reason. Just a slight irritant. Maybe I should move that to number 4. Number 2 is going to be the 110 wiring on the side. I think they can do a better job just using terminal blocks and clamp connections. And number 1, definitely the MC4 connection. And I'm going to leave you with this. The best advice I'm sure any solar installer will ever give you is install twice as much solar panels as you think you're going to need, because the minimum is barely enough. And I fell victim to that too. So number 1, install more solar panels, just like everybody says. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Bye. So we had to turn around and go ahead and land back into it. So we had to turn around and... Hi, Tanner. Okay. But, all right, and with that... Let's see. I lost my list. Doesn't matter.